bird of prey is usually defined as a meat-eating bird with a hooked beak and sharp talons on its feet. These birds are also referred to as raptors, a phrase that derives from an old term meaning to seize or grasp, referring to how these birds primarily attack their prey using their taloned feet. There are numerous species included in this bird of prey category, many of which are well recognized, while others not so much. They include, of course, the eagles, a group which itself has various genera containing different species, including the forest eagles, fish eagles, snake eagles, and the booted or true eagles. There's also the buzzards or bootios along with their close relatives, the true hawks or accipiters and their close cousins. Alongside the two previous groups, there's also the parabootios, such as the Harris hawk, numerous species of kites, the falcons alongside their close relatives the caracaras, and two groups of vulture, the Old World and the New World vultures. Other species recognized to be part of the bird of prey group include the harriers, the harrier hawks, also known as gymnogenes, honey buzzards, which in reality are closer to the kites than they are to true buzzards, the highly specialized fish-eating ospreys, the long-legged snake-stomping secretary bird, and, according to many, the seriemas, which do share some physical and behavioural traits to some of the previous species mentioned. Then there are, of course, the owls, which are generally not considered to be part of the bird of prey group, usually because of a few specific differences between them and diurnal raptors. They do, however, share the carnivorous nature of these birds, along with hooked beaks and sharp talons, along with raptorial gripping feet. This group of birds, along with other predatory species, has a long and interesting history, and there are numerous videos already on this channel about some of the most impressive of these species, including the mighty Haast eagle, the terror birds, Argentavis, and many other prehistoric species big and small, whether they died out as recently as 500 years ago or 50 million years ago. Almost all of these birds, however, would be considered to be part of the bird of prey group, with close links to species alive today. The main topic of discussion in this video, however, is a family of birds with no living descendants, and belong to a separate taxonomic group within the avian family tree, living millions of years before any of the species previously mentioned. The Mesozoic era was comprised of the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, an era that lasted over 180 million years. For much of that time, as we know, the Earth was dominated by, of course, the dinosaurs, with these creatures becoming especially large and dominant during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. However, living alongside the dinosaurs was a range of other smaller animals, including the early mammals, and other groups of reptiles including the crocodilians. As we now know, smaller groups of theropod dinosaurs also eventually gave rise to the first birds, or avian dinosaurs, as we now know that dinosaurs and birds are more or less the same group of animals. One particular family of birds that became especially abundant during the Mesozoic era was a family known as the Enantoornithines. Their family name means opposite birds in Greek, but this name is misleading, for they are in fact true birds, just from a separate lineage within the bird family tree from all modern species alive today. They shared many physical characteristics with all birds alive today, but they also had many features that were completely different. Many Enantoornithines had relatively strong legs and curved claws on their toes, and many species belonging to this group are believed to have spent much of their time in the trees where they perched upright. Their name, opposite birds, comes from the fact that one of their shoulder joints is the reverse of what's seen in modern birds, though this is just one of many physical differences between Enantoornithines and living bird species. Possibly the most noticeable difference between these extinct birds and their modern brethren was the fact that most species had teeth in their mouths, teeth that seem very reminiscent of their dinosaurian ancestors. Certain species of modern birds have what appear to be teeth of their own in their beaks. For example, the notched beaks of certain fishing species such as this merganser, which are used to grasp slippery fish and give them an almost reptilian appearance. Falcons have a protruding notch on their upper mandible referred to as a tomial tooth, which they use to bite through the neck vertebrae of their prey, and is thought to derive from the actual teeth in the reptilian ancestry of these birds. However, none of these adaptations seen in living birds are really teeth per se, not like the actual teeth found in other animals including mammals and reptiles, but in the extinct enantiornithines, alongside ancient ornithurin species, they retain their teeth in their jaws, suggesting a very different style of feeding in these ancient birds. Many species of enantiornithines also had protruding digits on their wings with long claws attached, a feature that is usually not observable in modern bird species. Most enantiornithine species appear to have a relatively blunt rear end, with a tail consisting of two long ribbon-like feathers, unlike modern bird species which usually have a fan of tail feathers. Many enantiornithines also appear to have a comparatively enlarged abdominal cavity compared to modern birds of similar size, indicating that the eggs that they laid were quite large, which has been further supported by actual fossilized eggs of these birds being discovered. Analysis of these fossilized eggs, as well as a preserved embryo, shows that enantiornithines compared to modern bird species took considerably longer to develop in the egg, especially if they had teeth. But once they emerged from their egg, they were well developed, with hatchlings showing to have skeletal ossification, well-developed wing feathers, and even a comparatively large brain associated with precocial behaviour. The larger a bird egg is, the longer it'll usually take to develop and eventually hatch, but by the time it hatches, the chick will be comparatively well developed and therefore has a greater chance of survival, as seen in modern precocial hatchlings seen today, such as chickens and ducks. Enantiornithines were definitely very adaptable and successful birds, and as they began to diversify, they fulfilled many of the ecological niches still occupied by modern birds alive today. Some species, with their agile movements and sharp teeth, were effective hunters of small insects and even small vertebrates, such as Bohyornis, which lived in ancient China over 120 million years ago. Living alongside Bohyornis was Longipteryx, a perching species with a long protruding snout, believed to hunt fish in much the same way as modern kingfishers, except for the protruding teeth. It is now known, however, that a number of enantiornithine birds became effective hunters of small animals, fulfilling a niche much like modern-day birds of prey and owls, even though they are not closely related. Probably among the best known of all of these carnivorous enantiornithine birds was Avisaurus, along with its close relatives. The original fossil holotype for Avisaurus was found in rocks dating to the late Cretaceous period in North America, though we now know that there were at least 3 subspecies of Avisaurus alive during the Cretaceous period. These were large enantiornithine birds, weighing up to 1.5 to 2 kilograms in weight, making them comparable in size to certain larger raptor species, for example the red-tailed hawk from North America, alive today. A very recent discovery in the Hell Creek fossil formation in North America revealed 2 new species of predatory birds like this that were alive around 68 million years ago. They were indeed from a new species of Avisaurus, along with yet another predatory species called Magnosaurus. These species were identified by single powerful foot bones, suggesting that these birds were physically capable of capturing and carrying prey in much the same manner as modern hawks. The fact that these birds were discovered living in the Hell Creek Formation is especially interesting, for this was a time and a place where some of the most iconic prehistoric creatures lived. During the late Cretaceous period, it is now known that the Hell Creek Formation was an ancient coastal floodplain, a lush environment rich with vegetation, supporting a whole host of extraordinary animals. Avisaurus and its kin lived alongside a whole host of fish, reptiles, early mammals, and of course the more dominant species, the dinosaurs. They lived alongside perhaps the most iconic of all dinosaur species, from the three-horned Triceratops to the infamous Tyrannosaurus rex. At this time, and for millions of years before, the skies were dominated by gigantic flying reptiles, pterosaurs, which, although related to both dinosaurs and birds, belonged to a slightly separate group on the family tree. Ruling the skies of North America was one of the largest flying animals ever to live, Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur standing as tall as a giraffe, with a 6-foot-long beak and a wingspan exceeding over 30 foot across. In fact, by the end of the Cretaceous period, many countries across the globe had numerous species of pterosaurs which reached sizes like this, with even the smaller species of pterosaurs alive at the time rivaling a bald eagle in size. It's clear that at this point in Earth's history, the birds were still in the shadow of the pterosaurs, but they were becoming more and more numerous and diverse, becoming ever more adaptable to the changing world around them. As briefly touched on earlier, it's clear from the fossil remains that Avisaurus and its relatives were well suited to hunting small animals, as the strong foot bones of these birds suggests that they were well adapted for both capturing and carrying small prey. Furthermore, the foot bones of these birds show that they had a unique muscle attachment point, further indicative of their leg and foot strength. The semi-opposable toes on their feet, along with sharp and curved inner claws, shows that they were well adapted for perching, but also for grasping their small prey in a raptorial manner. It mustn't be forgotten, however, that like other enantiornithines, Avisaurus and its kin had teeth in their jaws. In smaller enantiornithine species, their pointed, almost needle-like teeth were adapted for snatching small insects, but in the case of Avisaurus and its relatives, they took that to the next level, having larger teeth that appeared more blade-like in cross-section, well suited for cutting through flesh. Further biomechanical analysis of Avisaurus and its close relatives found in the Hell Creek Formation suggests that they would have the ability to hunt a wide range of smaller animals, such as small reptiles and mammals, and maybe even baby dinosaurs, likely in a similar manner to how modern hawks and owls tackle their prey in their modern-day ecosystems. Another fossil site of similar carnivorous enantiornithine birds suggests that these species even seem to digest their prey in a similar manner to modern raptors, with evidence of what seems to be preserved pellets or castings left behind by these birds, which they regurgitated after they digested their food, just like so many carnivorous species alive today. While these carnivorous enantiornithine birds may not be the first true birds of prey to evolve, their fossils are indeed the earliest known examples of predatory birds. It's clear that they shared many physical and possibly even behavioural characteristics with modern birds of prey and owls, despite the fact that they descended from a different avian lineage and have many physical differences as well. In scientific terms, this is an example of convergent evolution, where two unrelated species adopt very similar physical and behavioural characteristics in order to adapt to a similar lifestyle or ecological niche. Enantiornithines were by far the most successful and diverse birds around during the late Mesozoic era, adapting to a wide range of different habitats and ecological niches, while the ancestors of our modern birds were only just appearing. Then, around 66 million years ago, disaster struck, when a giant meteorite over 6 miles wide slammed into the Earth, specifically in the Gulf of Mexico. The impact triggered an onslaught of destruction across the planet, including tremendous earthquakes and shockwaves, tsunamis, and also wildfires as a result of the extreme heat caused by the blast. This is known as the KT extinction event, and is best known for wiping out the non-avian dinosaurs, though it is theorized that at least 60% of the species alive at this time were wiped out by this catastrophe. As well as the non-avian dinosaurs, all pterosaurs, many marine reptiles, and many bird species, including all enantiornithines, died out during this extinction event, though in the case of the so-called opposite birds, it's not fully understood why none of them made it. Some bird species, however, did survive, and they would ultimately give rise to all birds living up to the present day. It's believed that some of the survivors may have been ground-dwelling species, possibly resembling modern game birds, who were fleet-footed on the ground and able to take refuge either in remaining cover or underground in burrows to escape many of the dangers brought on by the extinction event. Other potential survivors were those birds that were semi-aquatic, able to dive underwater or also take refuge in burrows, enabling them to escape the many dangers brought on by the asteroid strike. These survivors belong to a new order of true birds separate from the so-called opposite birds, known as the neo-ornithines. And from the survivors of the KT extinction event, it is now recognised that 3 groups of birds managed to make it to the present day. One of these groups is the Paleognathes, which includes all species of ratites, a family of birds including species such as ostriches, emus, cassowaries, as well as extinct species like the New Zealand giant moa and Madagascar elephant bird, alongside the ratites' closest living relatives, the tinamou, a small bird from South America. Another group was the Gallo-encerans, which includes everything from modern ducks, geese and swans, and other kinds of fowl, including chickens and game birds. And finally, the third group of modern birds is the neo-avians, a family group that essentially encompasses all other living bird species in the world, including, of course, in that case, all living birds of prey and owls.